Okay. Thanks for watching this series. I call it the talk show. Let's talk show. Let's talk show. It's a conversation with personalities who have accomplished one thing or the other in their area of specialty or in their area of conviction. And I believe society must benefit from expertise. People who have been through certain experiences and bring those experiences to bear on our current generation. And this is the LTV show. And today we want to have a conversation on the topic, the twist of fame, the twist of fame. And I'm so glad to have a very accomplished historian and also an academician all the way from Canada who is well prepared for such a conversation. In one of the series that we had, we were guests on another program, and then he made mention of the price he has paid for trying to be famous in the area of his um, journey as an academic. And interesting enough, I got so glued to such a topic because I know it is an issue in our current dispensation where many people are really hungry to do anything just to become famous. But the question is, what is the process and how does it take to really get to that point of becoming famous? And I believe there are many ways we can become famous. Now, thanks to social media, you can just be on social media, always making noise, saying one thing or the other, and then they'll call you a celebrity, or you'll be known for whatever it is you want to do. But is that really what fame is all about? And my mind went back to these great personalities. We have Steve Jobs, we have Bill Gates, and all these people. And if you look at the genesis of their career, they were people who had the passion, people who had a certain desire in them to come up with something to benefit society. Were they eager for fame? I would say no. Their interest at that moment was to come out with a product and service based on their area of interest to serve humanity. And years on, as they became diligent and allow systems and structures to really shape their vision, over time they become world global famous icons, and not only famous but financially sound, have become financial gurus in our dispensation, and their products and services have lived on. So the question is, our current generation, the youth really want to become famous. They are hungry to get money, so they don't care the means to get the money. And it's a big challenge. I learned just last 2 weeks that in Nigeria, people kill every day because of ritual money. They kill another human being all in the name of getting rich fast to fuel their desire for whatever riches they think they can get overnight. But I believe this conversation will help a parent, will help a viewer, will help a teacher, will help a youth, any person who gets the opportunity to watch on the LTV YouTube channel, I know will be blessed by this conversation. So, Mr. Tony, thanks very much for honoring our invitation as our guest. And I will say your initial remarks and then we zoom into action. Welcome.
Welcome, Apostle Leonard. Thank you very much. Dialogue with you, Aaron. the last journey for me in terms of building a worldwide network of friends and also becoming famous different ways. This journey really began in 2016 when I started using Facebook, LinkedIn, and academia.edu. It seemed like the opportunity had come to me finally to be as a historian. Now, don't get me wrong, my career had been successful up to that point. I worked in the 1980s, then I taught community college as well in the 1990s. And I also taught a course on world religions. The year 2000, I started my public library system. I was assigned largely to do what's called user education, teaching people how to do it. It was very satisfying, but then in 2016, to go back to my studies in Russian history, because I have 2 degrees in the subject, I had learned Russian, and then bang, I started meeting people from Russia on Facebook. And I was invited to a presentation at a university conference in Russia. An article, and here I was, because of the time difference, speaking at 3 a.m. questions. And then I started making more and more contacts, more invitations. Turns out that when you mention the word dispensation, that is quite correct in its own time. As the Apostle Paul brilliantly pointed out, when the time had fully come. It had been time to start writing academically. I had the years of wisdom. I now had contacts, which would have been impossible when the Soviet Union still existed, and which would have been impossible without social media. Since 2016, it's been an annual rise, published probably more than 12 academic Russian scholarly journals. I'm now writing a book in Russian for public in the Russian Empire between 1866 and 1911. Now, at the same time, from 2016 to 2021, I was still working as a librarian. And one day my supervisor called me into the office and she says, "I could tell that your heart's no longer in this work." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, I could tell your heart is with your Russian academic studies." I asked, "Has my performance been slipping in? You're still doing an excellent job, but you just don't have that sort of passion." I said, "Well, I discovered a passion that's far more rewarding. And certainly, when I won, yes, the time had fully come that I could now devote myself full time to my academic work. Other people get more time in a day now." Also, what came up was the possibility through meeting friends in Ghana, do this sort of work that we're doing right now, empowering people. You and I have participated in a couple of conferences in which I've about, the need to develop your knowledge base if you want to become a leader, and also the discipline. Like I said, it was a bit shocking when the supervisor called me into the office to tell me your heart's not in this anymore. And I said, once you discover something better, I mean, I've still committed to an excellent job here, which I did right up to my last day of work. But when you have a chance given to you to accomplish great things, you don't turn that chance down. You see, it's very easy to say, oh no, this isn't for me, or I can't do this, or it's too hard. But I think that's one of the biggest problems. We talk ourselves out of doing good things. It's like the old, these certain voices inside us that have been programmed to speak will say, oh no, you can't do this. Or do you really want to do this? Because, I've learned enough by studying theology and everything that we do have certain scripts to happen, a possibility of a great change. You get trying to pull you back, going ahead on the journey. And sometimes people that people who will try to discourage you or say, do you really want to do this? Isn't this going to? And even it continues now. I mean, one of the prices of being famous is you are going to deal with people who are jealous of your accomplishments. People who will say, oh, you, or you were very lucky. It was just luck with you. I mean, I think that I did come into it at the right time. I mean, things are opening up in Russian academia where they want to have more foreigners contributing to the knowledge in Russia. In Hollywood, you're in the right place at the right time. And so it was in 2016. Yes, I did come into the right place at the right time. And as a matter of process at the time of trying to write a book about far-right movements in Europe, professor in Russia, I sent him my text and he wrote back to me saying, you have an excellent amount of material. Hello? He said you have the potential.
No, please, you can go ahead. Kindly go ahead.
He said historian. But you know,
Kindly go
hello?
ahead.
What?
You can kindly go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
What?
you.
Okay. He told me that I had the potential to be a great historian, but I had to learn the discipline of being a historian, formulating a thorough plan. And at the time, I took it very badly, but then 3 months later, he invited me to participate in an academic conference in September 2016. So in a way, this person who told me, you have heard, he did a huge favor for me because that really started during that necessary discipline to become a historian. When I started writing a plan for all of my articles, my editor in 2019 asked me to write a book about political terrorism in the Russian Empire. He said, could you use your academic plan for the book? It It took me 3 months, but I produced a 75-page plan. Professor at one university, for your work leaves a lot to be desired. And yeah, it is one of the difficult things, having to take criticism. In this case, it was very constructive criticism because I learned from it. You will get those who deliberately try to tear down, but I always have to remind myself, where are they coming from? Why are they saying this? And it's not too hard sometimes to recognize jealousy. It shows up in comments, you've come very far very fast, or I didn't have communities. It's a lot of nonsense. I mean, you can acquire that fame if you are prepared to do the necessary work for it and to stay focused. And then, as we're on the subject of fame, what is fame? I mean, I don't want to become a Hollywood star, or I'm sure there must be young people in Ghana who think they can make a career in movies or music. That's one of the illusions social media sense, is you become a celebrity in no time at all, just by how many fans that you have, say, on Endeavor. That's really not a measure of fame. And what does it mean to be famous? It means you have your pictures all over social media, healthy, you drive an expensive car, you have all sorts of fancy clothes. No, for me, I would see fame more as a chance, somebody who could have a positive impact on the lives of many people. Are expected to be a positive impact on, even in a setting as small as your family, or at your school, or at your place of work, or an impact upon others, force for change. That is how people. It could be a legacy that you leave behind, not just for your lifetime, but also for the lives of people who will follow you. And so my fame, for me, my fame is that I am developing Russia. I'm making a very positive contribution to the lives of young people in Ghana by sharing with them my acquired wisdom, by developing a strong knowledge base and great discipline. If even one there follows my example, I would have somebody, he said something to me. Most compliments I ever got from a student when I was teaching community was, this student came up to me and said to me, "You were the first teacher who ever believed in me." And he had had a hard life. He dropped out of school and everything. Then he decided to return to school as a mature student. But to be told, "You were the first teacher who ever believed," that made my whole career into, because you know that, yeah, this person just needed a chance. This person just needed somebody to believe in him or her. And it's an awesome feeling. But can you still hear me, Aaron? Hello?
I can hear you, please.
Hey,
I can hear you.
but I want to say one thing. Yeah. Your fame could also, your gifts could also work against you if you're not careful. Instead of being famous, you could become infamous. Now, I'll give you an example. I taught a community college course in world religions. And one student once asked me, "Do you pray before you come in the classroom?" I said, all the time. And they said, one girl asked, what do you pray about? I said, I pray that I won't be a stumbling block to you in your search for knowledge or faith. Because if I make some sort of sarcastic remark, that could have a terrible impact upon you. And I don't want it, I said, I would run the risk of being called to account for this on final judgment day, being a scandal or a stumbling block to somebody. And it's a temptation you have to fight with all the time. I mean, it's very easy sometimes, you know, you might want to dismiss a person's ideas or say that's all nonsense. But no, you have to think of the impact that that's going to make. Is it going to help that person rise? Or is it going to, if you make a sarcastic remark, it could set that person back? I was once told by my thesis student capacity to antagonize a lot of people. And I said, how so, Professor? He goes, well, it's this attitude you show that you get very pained expression on your face and you feel, why should I be explaining something that should be perfectly obvious? He said, I hate to tell you this, but it's not always obvious to people. And if you carry this attitude, people are not going to be interested in learning from you. Mm-hmm. And you might wind up deterring them from pursuing a career in academic research. Mm-hmm. So it's a very serious thing, because I'm saying this to you because you have a great potential, but your gifts could be twisted into the worst thing possible. In other words, what can make you famous can be twisted into what makes you infamous. Great. And it's something you have to be aware of this. Okay.
Yeah, I like
now, is there something you want to add?
Yes, I like the parts you just made. And in your presentation, you made a lot of important comments. First, you made us understand that fame is a journey, because despite your desire to become famous in your academic writings, it took you some period of years to be guided by an instructor, and that instructor help you identify your ability to be excellent in Russian history. So he brought your mind to that ability you have or interest you have in Russian history. Now, this brings to the fore that despite who we want to become, we must be very observant to the people around us and what they say about us.
Absolutely.
Great. Then that takes us to also the need for coaching and mentoring. Someone needs to guide us to gain clarity of where we want to get to.
Right.
We can't just decide that, oh, I want to become a newscaster. So I just go to school and then I get some radio station or TV station working, and then over time I'll become famous. No, there is a need to avail ourselves to instructions, to guidance, so that those who have been where we are yet to be have certain advantage of experiences and clarity for which they can tell us, do it this way or don't do it that way. And then you went to talk about timing. You know, being available is very important. I believe you were very busy throughout your career trying to do a lot of things, but it became so obvious that your area of specialty will start, it will be in Russian history from 2016 coming.
Right.
Great. So it means that the
Right.
more we narrow our abilities, our focus to those areas of expertise and abilities we naturally are desirous to become famous along, we tend to gain clarity because now there is time to focus in developing our knowledge base in those areas of life. Then you spoke about discipline. There is a need to be
Absolutely.
disciplined. There is a need to really know that this is where you are going, and certain things that will not be needed to really achieve that faith and that path of greatness you desire to get to. You need to cut those things off. And then that takes us to excuses. You made mention of excuses. There are voices that comes around that tells us you can't do this, and why not try this way. So it is very important to establish who is inspiring you, who is motivating you to focus or shaping your vision for it to be fulfilled in the right way, or who is also advising you to use the false way or the easiest means, which at the end of the day doesn't lead to achieving that fame or becoming excellent in that field of pursuits. Then you spoke about encouragement or discouragement and criticism. We must distinguish between voices that or people around us that will discourage us as against those who are around us that will provide critical criticism for us to really make informed choices. So I believe so far um, we've established the point that being the journey to fame is not just saying that, oh, I have ability in this area, because he established the fact that even what we are good at, if we don't manage it very well, it can work against us. So if you are good in football, if you are good in music, if you are good in learning, in any aspects that you think you are good at, and you don't manage it effectively, that same thing can work against you. I've seen very great footballers. They had people gave them accolades that they'll become the next Pele and all those kind of stuffs. But along their journey, they were nowhere to be found within the football fraternity. So, rightly, as he said, your giftings or your talents or whatever you think you want to pursue to become famous, if you don't manage it effectively, it can work against your quest to become famous widely. Mr. Tony, thank you for such very insightful uh, journey so far. Please, you have the platform to continue.
I want to follow up on some of the points you made,
Okay.
Apostle Aaron. It's very true that you can get a degree in something, make you an expert. An example, people would often ask me, oh, could you recommend a book on how to do research? I said, no, you can't learn it from a book. Learn by doing it. Which means you are going to make mistakes along the way. For something like research, you could learn by doing it. And as I've pointed out to people repeatedly, you can only learn to be a researcher if you are curious about how things are. You want, it's not just, oh, I really want to know researching. And I've taught people how to show people that they can develop their own methods of doing, will jump at the chance to learn how to become an expert. The problem we have I think, around the world people to the lowest common denominator, rather than encouraging people to rise, to develop their talents, to become experts and special knowledgeable people. Here, certainly in North America, there's a general since the 1960s to reduce people to the lowest common denominator. You know, but also the other thing is also, of course, the experience. I mean, if I had just gone straight into becoming an academic, it wouldn't have worked, because I really do believe the experience I had as a journalist gave me the experience of information quickly, how to know different levels of government, different functions of different agencies. And you learn that by doing it.
Mm.
Also, working as a librarian, you really do become an expert at finding the key source variety of subjects, even subjects that you have not formally studied. You wind up knowing, yes, I would use this source, and I would recommend to you how to use this. It's learning by, and it's quite interesting because my editor in Russia has told me I have research skills that most historians in Russia don't have. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you know how to do keyword searching. You know how to search databases. You could figure out the subject heading. I said, isn't that what a historian's supposed to do? He goes, I said, well, how do they do their research? He goes, well, the librarian recommended bibliography. I said, that's not an effective way of doing research. He goes, for you, true. He goes, this is why your work probably has a certain capacity about it, that it shows that, yes, you do know how to do research. Also, the other thing is, you made an excellent point about how you can narrow your focus, but this is something rather interesting. I've held this sort of personal philosophy since the late 1980s, that you first start with the particular, your own special interest, but then you go out to the universal, and then you come back to the particular, and then your particular interest shows all sorts of different aspects. So because of this, here's how it worked for me. Yes, I am a historian, but my work combines an interdisciplinary approach. I could bring in politics, sociology, religion, theology, and philosophy. So when I write about Russian history, I could sort of like, it's much different than the standard. I'm not reciting a list of events or facts.
Yeah.
The same thing too, I've also studied European history, which means work takes on a uniqueness, because I could always set it within the European context and compare Russia to Europe. Very few people in Russia do this. That's why my work is considered, groundbreaking. But it's a case of me going from a rather narrow interest, exploring all the other academic areas out there. Then you find out that what started as a very narrow specialization is entirely different now. It's the same thing, certainly. Certainly, this is, like last couple of presentations. This is the first These are the first presentations I made to a Ghanaian audience, and already, of course, I'm learning to become better at what we do. How do we become expert, develop our knowledge base? So it's sort of, I'm finding out if you could one of the points about being famous is you always have to pay attention to the needs of the people
Great.
that you're serving.
Mm. So
It's not in it for your own.
if I get you
Uh,
right, one of the keys to becoming famous is to be specialized in an area. In other words, to be unique in providing service or products in an area or specialty. So you are not thinking about yourself,
Absolutely.
what you gain, how you project your image. It's not just about your image, but it's about a product or a service through which will also uplift your image at the end of the day. So becoming famous is not just about you, but
I
rather
call it, yeah.
products or your audience in mind.
You have to develop your own brand. And
Hmm.
how I learned this, one of I did for the last several years of my work, I worked in the business science and technology department of the library. And I had to give research sessions to businesses. And I had to teach them how to do market research. In other words, figure out the demographics of the people that they want to sell their products or services to. What was the state of the industry that they were going into, and who were their potential competitors? All about they develop their own brand to offer something unique.
Hmm.
And I started applying it to my own life and my academics. Okay, what I can make unique from my academic work in Russia, just like my work for Ghana. What is it that makes me unique and that will have a positive impact on people's lives? You have to be thinking about the people that you want to reach. So in Russia, it means being very sensitive to what they controversial political topics, understanding why these topics have been controversial, showing them that there are different. My work for Ghana is always focused upon emphasizing how much Ghana is a part of the world, and that in how together we can work at
Yeah. Okay. So
building our knowledge base. And you are. It could be in your own family, your workplace, your school, your church, or in the broader society. Whatever it is, as long as you are contributing to being a power force for change, that is your fame.
great. So in all, we are saying that we should be curious enough to discover ourselves and find that niche where our abilities and time can be spent throughout life. And then through experiences, we should apply those experiences to our life
Right.
because one day they'll be useful. And then that uniqueness over time will get us to that position of fame where the needs of our audience and what we are specialized in is what propels us to fame, but not just trying to be famous by any means. Now, I want to ask this question.
No.
Now that we have a youth base, a generation that's, let me use the word, lack patience to follow through systems and processes and structures to really develop something of value, that they are in a hurry to get things fast. To you, what do you think will be the outcome of the generation that in the next 20, 30 years, what do you think our generation by then will be if we don't have instill some of these values we are discussing now into them, and they still have this tendency of reaching to fame without having to go through the process of discovering themselves, experience over time? What do you think will be the nature of the generation we'll be having in the next 20, 30 years?
Okay, I have high hopes for the generation to come because I discovered this when I was teaching high school students how to do library research. Sure, they want to quick, but they've had to deal with things that we never had to deal with, just this endless amount of information. What we call information overload.
Yeah.
They're having to deal with books, online databases, internet sites, which is reliable. They have to determine what is reliable.
And what's not.
They were developing their critical thinking skills much better than I was at my age.
Yeah.
I was their age.
Yeah.
Because the volume of material to deal with is enormous. Yes, it's nice to have everything quick, but I was honored to have many students who were willing to write essays on subjects for information, and they knew how to critically analyze their material. And it was rather interesting because I had some time with the kids. I said, they're our future taxpayers.
Yeah.
You know, by them getting good jobs, they're going to keep libraries open. I mean, it's a sort of have to, when you're doing work with young people, as I found, I really had to believe in them. And I learned a lot from them in terms of watching their willingness to take on difficult subjects, which I probably would not have been able to do when I was their age. They learned how to use the tools to find information. Yes, there was a certain impatience I could remember, like I didn't deal so much with the high school students. It was more with some of my younger colleagues who think that climbing ahead means stepping on other people. In other words, they want to get a high paying position, so they'll do whatever it takes. They will behave in they'll behave in very uncollegial ways. They would do things like tell tattletales about you to the bosses. It got to the point where our union had to talk with some of the younger librarians and tell them your behavior is extremely uncollegial.
So to you think there's
It
high
may get
hopes.
you ahead with the.
You believe there are high hopes for our youths
It's having goals, yes.
in
They have to have goals, but you also, you know, I really do have a huge hope in the younger generation because when I look at the world they have to look at, being bombarded with information, how do they know what's true or what's false? Plus the fact that we've become a global village. You know, you and I may be separated by an ocean and land, but we are talking as, you know, as friends and colleagues. For young people to be caught up in this, and of course, social media also has its temptations. One thing I do worry very much about is the number of young people who project a false identity on social media.
Beautiful.
They'll think up fake names for themselves. They'll think up fake names for themselves, or falsify their educational credentials. I have a friend of mine here in Toronto who's a Catholic priest from Nigeria. He wrote his doctoral dissertation about false identities on social media. he said it's become a serious problem among Nigerian young people, and I'm
Yeah,
sure it's become a problem with young people in many countries.
exactly.
And I even had somebody from Ghana once ask me, "Is that your real name?" I said, "Why would it not be my real name?" He goes, "Well,
Yeah,
we're used to faking our names here."
yeah.
Um, my word to people who want to take on a fake identity is, if you want to live out a lie, you will become that lie.
Beautiful. Let me
And I do
re-emphasize that
have,
word.
and I do just one thing. I
Okay.
do have my father to thank, because years and years ago, when we were kids, his favorite quotation from Shakespeare was from Hamlet: "This above all, to thine own self be true, for it must follow as the night follows the day. Thou cannot then be false to any other man." If you're false to yourself, you will be false to everybody that you meet.
Beautiful. I like you said a lot, and I like the fact that trying to live a false identity means that the outcome of your life will be a false identity. False product, false outlook, everything will be false. And your parents played a very important role in preparing you for the future, because that quote really
Yes.
became a voice that guided you anytime you were going to do something that will not be the original. So dear parents, the ball comes back to us. There is the need to give our children the right values and principles that will guide them when they get to their point of really facing the realities out there. And well, when you talk about false identity, this is what I've noticed as a life coach. Many young people take their pictures and model their lives after celebrities, after people in the limelight, and say that they are their
Absolutely.
role models, they are their mentors, and all that. How genuine is that? How can someone who you have not met, someone who you have not spoken to, someone who you have not known much about, can you call such a person your coach? And to what extent would that person inspire you when you even are not willing to really study how the person got to where they got to? And the funny aspect is that there's this craze in society that people want to associate with those who have become famous. What is the danger in that? When they are not willing to study the lifestyle of the person, what made the person become that? They are not willing to learn that, but they are just willing to associate with so-called famous
You
people
see,
and believe that over time they become.
what happens is, part of it's endemic to certainly in North American society. Everybody expects quick results.
Mhm.
The concept, the long haul, is alien to many people
Beautiful. The
in
long
North
haul is
America.
alien to many
Everything
people.
has to be quick results. I
Mm.
want it. Yeah, the French will use the term "le longue durée," the long duration.
Long duration.
Long duration means that it's a whole series of little changes
Mm.
that gradually build themselves up.
Mm.
So the final stretch of this duration, things are entirely different
Mm.
than when you start.
Great.
Yes, of course, it's bit by bit the changes have come. And by the way, I'm the first one to admit that I still have a long way to go
Beautiful.
in academic fame. I
Great.
have a long way to go.
I like
Same
that
thing with
fact. So
my work.
despite your age and accomplishments, and recognized in Russia as an authoritative personality in Russian history, you still believe that there's a long mile ahead of you to be able to achieve great things that is within you.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Because
So,
the day you say to yourself, I know everything I need to know, that's a very dangerous thing to say, because you will start to decline. It's the same thing. I know that my work with you and others in Ghana is just at the beginning stage now. I know that I still have a lot to learn, but I know also that there's more accomplishments ahead. But getting back to this thing about the false identity, the reason is because I think people adopt it partly because of peer pressure. And I went to stage when I was in high school, I wanted to become popular.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a rebel. My Latin teacher asked me to stay after class one day. And she said this to me: you're going about it the wrong way.
Good.
People are laughing at you. She goes, there is absolutely nothing being a serious student, but trying to become the popular rebel, the with it man. She goes, it's not going to work. At the time, I said to myself, who the hell is she to tell me this? But then years later, I realized she had my best interests at heart.
Exactly. Great.
And it's rather, no, it really is, because you realize, was I that stupid back then? Why wouldn't I listen? It always comes down to the timing. I mean, what she said to me in 1970 came to me years later when I finally realized I'm never going to be popular. And I don't have to do that crazy stuff, which meant taking on a false identity. And false identities come in many different ways. Okay.
Yeah.
To give you an example, the reason why my father was so insistent upon being true to yourself is because my father was born in Italy and spent 12 years under fascism, which he used to tell us kids it was the biggest lie that was ever invented, because it taught people to see themselves as, we're a super race, we're the heirs to the Roman Empire. He goes, it was all a lie, but people believed in it. And so it was a case of millions of people taking on individual false identities and a collective false identity. I remember, if somebody promises you the answers to everything, start running in the other direction. It was really like, but no, it's a whole sort of thing about, why people want to have this sort of with it false identity, because it's, it's a longing to be popular. And being popular is not the same as being loved and respected. You really do have to
being
bring
popular
integrity.
doesn't give room means that you are really influential, or you are also someone of value. I like that point very well. Being
I
popular, being
mean,
famous.
yeah, because popularity has always been combat against all my life. I mean, if it hadn't been for that teacher of mine who called me into, told me to stay after class, to warn me about the risk I was running in trying to become popular. And this is where more people who can serve as role models for us. I think of my parents, that one teacher, my thesis supervisor when I was in graduate school. And it's rather younger people all the time asking, could you be my mentor? Well, are you prepared to commitment to be mentee.
Commitment to the
As your
mentee relationship.
are you committed to being the mentee? I can make the commitment to be a mentor, but you have to make a commitment on your part. And one of the things that's disappointed me with people is that they expect me to turn over my wisdom like that.
Yeah, on a silver platter.
I mean, what? No, it really teachers who've told me, you can't believe some of the younger teachers. They come to me and ask me, "Oh, could you turn over your materials to me? I've spent 20 years developing my teaching material."
So, in other words, there's this.
I'm not going to hand it over any work.
Beautiful. There's this craze to chance on people's expertise and quickly think when you get it, you can make it faster. So people are not
Right,
ready
and
to
that's
understand the process to bring
the
about.
whole wrong.
People are not interested in the process that can refine them to become expertise over time. They just want a quick fix approach. So give me the information straight or give me the answer to my problem and then I'll be okay. Is that the case?
My take would be I would teach the person how to find the information.
Beautiful. Which most often
Because
they
being
don't
a
have the time
librarian,
for.
but you give people the tools. We always have that old saying, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he will eat for a lifetime. You're not doing people any favors by doing all the work for them. Matter of fact, if you think that's good, what happens is people are going to start regarding you as a sucker or a pushover. And the thing is, to me, oh, I have so much to learn from you. Could you be my mentor? Well, are you committed to be a mentee? Are you prepared to do the work that it takes to acquire wisdom? And just so you'll know, I have had this problem in Russia, Pakistan, India, Nigeria, and Ghana, of people wanting to have me as their mentor, but not willing to do the work. I think it's a problem you'll find in quite a few countries. It shows itself in different ways. It's always the same thing. Hand me your knowledge base. There is one person I am committed to. Somebody who's indicated his willingness to become my successor, so to speak. Hey, it's something else I'm finding more and more. If you want to become famous, you have to start thinking about training your successor. So the legacy continues.
Yeah. So fame actually is not in isolation.
2 or 3.
So if I got it right, fame is not just becoming popular in isolation, but it has to be generational. It has to be a continuity of a legacy. So let's say,
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it does have to be generational.
wait,
And I do already, and I can tell you one thing. how I do my study, I'm the third generation who's doing it this way. Because I learned from my thesis supervisor, who in turn, when he was doing his doc thesis, he worked in the Soviet Union doing archival research in his academic environment. Country's top historian on the 19th century, and he had a specific method of doing research, which he passed on to my thesis supervisor, passed on to me.
Beautiful.
Because sometimes Russian colleagues.
So there's that transfer of
Have said to me the story of how my thesis supervisor learned from one of their great experts. They said, so his legacy is being continued in Canada, and you're passing it back to us here in Russia. I said,
beautiful. Beautiful. So the mentee-mentor relationship,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I do have
must be
somebody.
consciously developed. The mentee-mentor relationship
It has to be
consciously developed, and submission to respect the process, so that there can be valuable transfer of knowledge and wealth that can build on the mentee's also ability to become an expertise or an expert, to become an expert in their field of ability and endeavor. I'll say I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation. And I believe it will, anyone listening will pick certain vital information from this conversation. And you know, we always say this is a conversation and we don't follow a specific format. But by the end of the day, the most valuable lessons that we need to pick and run with, you surely get it by the end of the conversation. This is the LTV show, and I really appreciate Pastor Tony, who since 2016 has dedicated himself to work on his long ambition of becoming an accomplished academician and historian. And indeed, when he availed to listen to all that was said and he kept working on it, he is now worldly accepted in Russia, acknowledged with a lot of world acclaimed personalities validating his work as an accomplished historian or Russian historian. And I believe he has shared a lot with us. And before we go, Pastor Tony, if you have any last word for our viewers, you can give us your last word, and I know will really be imparted.
And being able to share a major part of my journey with you. Some of the things I said today about the people who helped shape my life, I've never said to people before. So wow. It's an honor to be able to share
only here
on this
on
deeper
LTV.
level.
Great.
And my hope is that we'll have more conversations like this. But certainly I really feel that, you know, if anybody out there is listening, just try to remember a couple of key things about this conversation. You may have to play it over and over again, but certainly, like I said, I was able to share some of the most crucial parts of my journey with you in terms of the people who did shape my life. And I pray that I will be able to have a positive impact on the lives of those who are listening to this conversation today.
Thank you very much.
And I pray that you'll go on.
Great. Thanks very much for your concluding remarks. And to add up, I would say that the last time we had the conversation, you made a very important point that we should not be quick to associate with certain people, thinking that those people will easily make us become famous. But along the way, you realize that certain people you were so eager to associate with for partnership, if you had done that earlier on, it would have become a really question mark on your genuine path to excellence. So I would say that please, on this journey to fame, it you have to be very strategic in your choice of friendship, in your choice of partnership. Take time to
Certain people
develop
could
your talents,
turn out to be,
principles, your values, your expert base along your path of purpose. Give your time to develop, give your time the patience to learn. And then when the time set for your fame comes, no one can take it away from you. No one can take it
time.
away from you. So I'll end, like he said, kindly watch it over and over again. And at each viewing, you will really get something unique to add up to the stock of knowledge you already have. Thank you very much for your time. I will entreat all viewers.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will entreat all viewers
Okay.
to like the message, like our page, share it, and we'll come your way another time with very insightful conversation on topics that will really help us to become impactful and fulfilled in life. See you another time. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.